Thank you, Oleg and Evgeny, for describing the architecture of Virto Commerce solution, as well as the introduction to Azure DevOps and the productivity tools that could be used at the different stages of your CI/CD processes. Now let's jump into the Azure pipelines itself. So let's go ahead and create our first pipeline. Here we will choose the Azure repos Git, since we created our source code using the Azure repos, but you see that there are several options available here, so you will not be stuck here. Here let's choose the repository for which we are going to create the pipelines. Let me first create a pipeline for the custom model. Here you see the pre-configured, predefined templates that Microsoft propose out of the box. You can use them, of course, but in our demo we will show and we will start from the starter pipeline, since I will need to fully customize it for our purposes. So here our pipeline. Now let me briefly describe what it does. So for the image, for the build agent, we will use the Windows latest agent. On top of that, we are going to install the .NET Core 3.1 SDK, and of course our Virto Commerce global tool, the VC Build. And as you can see, the main step here is the PowerShell script, basically, PowerShell command that simply does VC Build compress. So that's it. That the whole thing that we'll do, we'll build and prepare the package for you. Only what you need to do else is to publish the artifacts. So let's go ahead and save this pipeline and run it. So you see it's asking you to commit the changes to your source code. So now here I will commit directly to master, but yeah, in the real world it could be that you will need to do it through the either new branch or either pull request, whatever. Now it's basically creating the pipeline and run it. So let's see what's going on here. You see that job is starting, and the latest Windows image is pulled from the available pool for the Azure pipelines, and it starting to initialize the job. In order to save you time, I paused the video, and here I come back once the job actually finished and create the artifact. So here you can see that all of the described steps passed completely without any errors, and here is the artifact that is available for the deployment actually. Now let's do the same for the storefront and for theme. So new pipeline, Azure Git, storefront, starter pipeline, almost the same thing as here. Save, run. And we are come back. The job is finished for the storefront. Again, you can see that all of the steps passed successfully, and one artifact was produced here. Now let's go and create a pipeline for theme. Again, starter pipeline, and here it will be a bit different since we need to have Node.js installed here. Our theme is building using the gulp, basically the gulp compress target. So let's go ahead and build it. And we are come back. Again, you can see that all of the steps finished successfully, and the job produced the artifact with the theme. So all of our source code was built, and we are ready to deliver it. All right, we built all necessary parts, and now we can start with the delivery pipelines. Let's go ahead and create release pipelines. So we are going under the releases, and here you will have a list of the release pipelines that you could create. First of all, I need to mention that here in Virto, we actually split the release parts into two. First, and the most simplest one from the configuration part, it is the Virto Commerce platform update. And the second one is a bit complex. It's the release pipeline to update the custom modules and custom components actually that you could develop. So first, let's go ahead and see how the simple pipeline is look like with the Virto Commerce platform update. So let's go ahead and check this out. What it has is just simply downloading the GitHub release of the Virto Commerce platform and simply deploy it to the Azure App Service. That's it. So nothing actually interesting here. The most interesting part will be with the release process of your custom components. Let's go ahead and create them from scratch. So new release pipeline. Here Microsoft provide you some templates, but I'm usually starting with the empty job. So let's go ahead and do it. Stage name, yeah, it will be dev environment. Let's call it dev. All right. And now we need to add the artifact that will be used during our deployment. First of all, I need to mention that we use infrastructure as a code principles. In this case, I created the Azure repository within our project where I put the ARM templates. Now let me specify them here under the main branch. Yeah, the latest version. Yeah, that's actually will add the actual ARM templates to my artifacts that I will use. Now we need to add the build components, build artifacts. Yeah, it is the module, the latest version. It will be the storefront. Let's go ahead and add it. And the theme. Yep, theme. So you see, yeah, and the first one is basically for the backend, storefront, and theme. It's just for the front end. If you will have more modules, you can either could have a separate repository for them, so it will be the separate artifacts. So let's go ahead and configure the actual tasks. First of all, we need to configure the build agent. I will use the Windows 2019, and you see that those packages will be downloaded to this build agent. Now let's add the job. the tasks. First of all, we need to prepare the modules folder. This is the folder which contains all of the modules for your solution. Since we have just one, we will have just one task, which will basically add our build components to this particular folder, the target folder, which we specified here. And the source will be our build module. That's it. Now let's go ahead and add the task which will deploy our infrastructure. That's RM template deployment. First of all, we need to connect to our Azure subscription, specify the actual subscription, specify the resource group, specify the location, and the actual templates. So since we already downloaded the artifacts, so we need just to specify here the template and the parameters file. This one. That's it. So you see that the deployment mode is incremental. So if everything is changed, it will not be start from the scratch. It will just add the missing component or updated component. That's it. Now let's go ahead and start creating a job for deploying the backend. Here we need to do some trick. Since the modules folder, it's just a simple virtual directory, Virto folder, we need to add the following task, which will convert our folder to a virtual directory in order to actually deploy the code. I don't know why, but by default, Azure App Service deploy task cannot do the deployment to the virtual directory, to the virtual folder. In this case, here I do this trick. First, I'm specifying that this module folder is the virtual application. Just connecting here, and under the general settings, I'm just specifying that this virtual path modules is actually the virtual application. You see that the platform will be deployed to this specific folder, which actually is the application, and we will not change it. But what we need to do is to do this for modules. All right. So next task will be the application service deploy itself. Here again we need to just connect to Azure subscription, specify the name of the application, and here you see the virtual application. We need just to type modules and specify this prepared modules folder, which we did on the copy file stage. As the deployment method, we will use the web deploy, and we don't need these parameters that Azure chooses by default. So that's it. That's the basic thing here. Now, after the deployment, again, we need to change the configuration of the modules and convert it back to the virtual directory. That's it. Here again, just connect. backend, resource group. That's it. So we finished with the backend. Now let's go ahead and create a deployment task for the storefront. Here we don't need to do any kind of magic thing, so it's just a simple deployment. Selecting the sources, the target. Yeah, everything is quite straightforward, and again, as the deployment method, we will use the web deploy. Storefront done, and now the last thing, we need to create task for theme deployment. Theme will be delivered to the Azure Blob Storage, and in this case we need first to prepare the files. After the gulp compress command, we are getting the zip. In this case we need to extract the files, and I'm specifying the target folders. So we will have an electronic theme. So that's how it's called. And the last thing, Azure file copy. Azure file copy. This task, which will do which will actually copy all of this theme to the storage account. Azure Blob, CMS container, and I need the following electronics, the following folder structure. So that's basically it. We configured the pipeline. So let's go ahead and save it and create our first release. Custom deployment. Sorry. Save. All right. In order to save your time, I just clicked to run and was waiting once the deployment actually finished. Now you see that it is succeed. You will see the following thing under the each release that you will trigger. So it could be manually triggered, or you can configure the specific trigger. So let's go ahead just to check some logs that and how the actual process is look like. So it's quite readable and quite clear here. So all of these things could be checked in the details, what is doing here, and how the actual thing is going, as well as to check the timing of the delivery itself. So we see here that everything finished well, and let's go ahead and check how our solution is actually feeling. Here's the backend. Let's go ahead and do our first login. Okay, as it usually does, it is installing the latest Virto Commerce modules under our solution. So let's go ahead and wait a little bit. Alright, installation finished. Let's go ahead and restart our backend. Now let's do import the sample data. Alright, import is finished. We see the interface of our backend, and it seems like working fine. Let's check the models here. So we see installed modules. Yeah. What we need to do else is actually to specify the password for the front end. So we need to go to the security, to the front end user. This user actually I used to connect to the storefront. So I specified the custom password in my template. Now I need to save it. And let's check this out, check the storefront. And we come back. As you can see, the storefront is actually working fine. All of the you can browse the product page. So yeah, we are good. Thank you for your time.